Hi, this is Ms. Holly from Olympian High School. We've been studying post-classical Europe, Western Europe, where the Roman Empire used to be. It has fallen since. There's a decentralized political order. We just studied about the serfs. So you know about the serfs as a new class starting around the 600s. You know about how they originated from the intermarriage between free peasants and slaves that took place after the fall of the Roman Empire. You know that they could pass on that land to their heirs, that they were obligated or had the responsibility to provide labor, which is work or payments in kind, things like eggs, bread, beer, that they're unable to move from the land without the permission of their of the lords, and that they might have to pay a fee in order to do that. And you also learned about manors, these large estates, and we've already studied that, but I just wanted to go over those slides because I realized I didn't do that in the previous lecture. We mostly worked with the Traditions and Encounters textbook. We're going to use that same textbook to now study the economy of early medieval Europe, and at the end I'll try to go over the slides. So one of the things you need to know is that unlike other parts of the world, Europe is going to be a lot slower in terms of economic reintegration. So it's going to be rural instead of urban. So rural is more like spread out. It's more like countryside. Urban is more city, like Urban Outfitters, right? Outfits for the city. So this is a big difference. Make sure you understand why all those invasions have provided some instability. So it's going to take a while for Europe to recover from those invasions and to have the amount of agricultural production needed to support the populations of a city. Speaking of agricultural production, we see a big change. The center of gravity is going to shift from producing food in the Mediterranean to producing food in what we think of as Gaul, or now it's called France, where the Frankish kingdom was. When they were producing agriculture in the Mediterranean, they could use these small wooden plows because the earth there isn't very dense, but that didn't work for the area that is now France, Gaul. The heavy plow is what you needed instead, which was this iron-tipped heavy plow, which was more expensive. And that technology is going to spread throughout Western Europe, and the ultimate effect is going to be it will increase the population, so demographic growth. There were other things that also led to agricultural productivity increasing, like the use of the watermill, the use of a horse collar, which made it easier for things like horses and draft animals to pull the heavy plows, which increased the land under cultivation. Also, new methods of rotating crops. So that you do see an increase in agricultural surplus that's enough to maintain the elites and the manors, but it's not enough to support the population of cities that other parts of the world are going to see. So the artisans, craft workers, merchants, professionals. Make sure you know that. It's not until 1000 CE that we really start to see European economy change. But up until 1000 CE, it's more of a rural society. And even the marketplaces that did sprout up supported the populations nearby. Two traders that I want you to remember. First, you're going to see that even though it's more rural, there was trade happening. There's a lot of trade happening in the Mediterranean, so closer to what you think of around the Mediterranean Sea, but mostly closer to what you think of as Italy. And you see a lot of Christian merchants there trading with Muslims. Now that makes sense because the historical context is the Dar al-Islam is spreading. And that's really important because it's through the Muslims that we see Western Europeans be introduced to crops that are going to enrich their diets, like lemons, limes, oranges, melons, had already made their way throughout the rest of the Islamic world, the Dar al-Islam. Okay, so know about that. Another group that they're trading with is the Norse merchant mariners. So these are people that are kinsmen or related to the Vikings. And the reason I want you to remember them, you're going to read this section, is they're similar to the Muslims in that they're connecting Western Europe with the rest of the world, because the Norse merchant seafarers would travel all the way to the Abbasid Empire and to the Byzantine Empire. And from the Abbasid Empire, they would trade for things and then bring back silver. They would take that silver to trade it for things inside Western Europe. And a lot of the coins that were minted in Western Europe were minted with silver bullion brought from the Abbasid dynasty. Make sure you remember that. That's a really important connection. And then the last thing you need to know is that the population is going to finally increase to its pre-fall of the Roman Empire level as we approach the year 1000. So that's a big turning point. We're going from the early Middle Ages to the high Middle Ages. So if I can, my time right now, but if we can go over this again. So you have agricultural center moves north to the Frankish kingdom from the Mediterranean. You have the iron-tipped plow, new technology. You have draft animals, water mills, agricultural output insufficient to support growth of cities, but it does support a beginning trade. I'm running out of time, so I'm rushing, but that didn't come out right. But you know what I mean? It wasn't enough to support cities, but it could support like a slowly growing manor system, and it's going to lay the foundation for what will happen after the year 1000. We talked about strong Mediterranean trade, despite tension with the Muslims and the Norse merchant seafarers. Sometimes they would engage in commerce or trade, and sometimes they would attack or plunder. They'd go back and forth depending on the conditions of the time, and they connected or linked the Western Europe with the Muslim world.